in Daniel chapters 7 and 8. Daniel had two visions shown to him in the first and the third year of King Belshazzar of the Babylonian Empire. Next, in chapter 9 and now in chapter 10, he has appearances of angelic beings, first in the first year of Darius, king of Persia, and then in the third year of King Cyrus. Now this is the last, and it's a very long appearance. Welcome to yet another tidbit from the book of Daniel, and this will be the first of the three last tidbits from the book. The point is that chapters 10 to 12 in the book of Daniel actually belong together. It's a long prophecy, and it covers three divisions in 3 chapters, longer than any of the previous ones. At the same time, it is an extension of what came before. Let us read. In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a word was revealed to Daniel, who was named Belshazzar. And the word was true, and it was a great conflict. The word great conflict or great controversy indicates that what now follows is a battle between good and evil throughout the history of humankind. The word that is revealed is davar, that means history. This is history. And then Daniel comments, he understood the word and had understanding of a vision. Now that can be translated through a vision, because what happens now is that in chapter 10, Daniel has first a vision of a heavenly being, a divine being. Next, he has 2 encounters with heavenly beings, and then you have a long oral prophecy. In chapter 12, angelic beings turn up again, they appear again. So the long, very long oral prophecy in chapter 11 is framed on both sides by communication with and vision of heavenly beings. That is what helps Daniel to understand the prophecy. In this prophecy, in the beginning, in chapter 10, which is a chapter we will look at a little further today, in this prophecy you have a number of links to the previous chapters. Now, for instance, Daniel is in chapter 10 fasting, and according to what we find later said by the angel, he is praying. Prayer and fasting go together in the book of Daniel. In chapter 6, King Darius fasted and prayed. In chapter 9, Daniel was the one who was fasting and praying. And when the angelic being meets Daniel a little later in chapter 10, he is called the most beloved, Chamodoth, the same term that was used in chapter 9 when Gabriel encountered him. The word for vision here, mare, appearance, is the one that is continuously throughout, used about angelic appearances. When Gabriel is asked to come and explain the vision that Daniel saw in chapter 8, it is his appearing, mare. Now the vision proper is named chazon. That is the common Old Testament word for an ecstatic prophetic vision. And the last one of that kind in the book of Daniel is actually chapter 8, and it ends in verse 14. Following that, all explanations are long, all explanations given by the angels. Now, chapter 10 is then introducing a mighty vision. Let us read what Daniel is experiencing. In verse 4 it is said, on the 24th day of the first month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a man clothed in linen, with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. He has a mighty vision. he has been fasting and praying for 3 weeks. Now, the term that is used for the weeks is full weeks or weeks of days. There are sometimes people who say, oh, this indicates that the weeks mentioned in chapter 9 are not literal days. But the expression weeks of days is simply an indication that this is a period of full weeks. Similar expressions with days in connection to month and years are used throughout the Old Testament to indicate when the period in question is regarded in full. Leviticus 25:29 and Numbers 11:20-21 are some examples. So this means that the period is 21 days. And then after that period, on the 24th day, a mighty heavenly being shows himself to Daniel. And this being is so frightful that those who are with him, they run away, and only Daniel is left alone to see the vision. The men who were with me did not see it, he says in verse 7. A great trembling fell upon them, and they fled to hide themselves. So I was left alone and saw this great vision, and no strength was left in me. Now let me come back a little later to why he is beholding this divine being. Because what happens next is, in two tempi, a heavenly being, another one than the one he saw in vision, a heavenly being comes to Daniel. Daniel is lying stupefied to the ground. The heavenly being touches him and raises him up and gives him some strength. The first of these encounters closes then in verse 13 and 14, and that angel, who is not named, it could be Gabriel, but he is not named, that angel tells Daniel that he is fighting with the prince of Persia, who has withstood him for 21 days. That's the period in which Daniel was interceding. But then the angel tells Michael, one of the chief princes, it could be translated the chief prince, came to help me. So the first encounter closes with a reference to Michael, the prince of the people of God, whose name means who is like God. That's like a rhetorical question. Then from verse 15 you have a second encounter where Daniel once again is touched by an angel. He is given strength and courage to stand up, and then this heavenly being, this angel, also speaks about Michael. He said in verse 20, do you know why I have come to you? Now I'll return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I go out, behold, the prince of Greece will come. But I'll tell you what is inscribed in the book of truth. There is none who contends by my side against these except Michael, your prince. So what's going on? Here's a background to the story. When Cyrus, the Persian king, conquered the Babylonian Empire, a new religion took over. The question for the Jews was, what would happen to them? Would they return from captivity? And the fight behind the scenes was going on, the fight for the mind and the will of the Persian king. On the one hand, in favor of the Jews, this angel, this heavenly being, was fighting, but he was opposed by other heavenly beings. So what you have disclosed in this chapter of the book of Daniel is that behind the historical scenes you have something else going on. There is a spiritual battle for the minds of humans. The long history in chapter 11 is framed by two such visions and conversations with heavenly beings, indicating that there is a battle going on behind the scenes of human history. And the intercessory prayer of Daniel, and maybe of you and me, would have an impact on releasing the heavenly forces. Michael, the prince of the people of Daniel, then comes to the aid of other heavenly beings, and he will win the victory. Why do we have two encounters? Because the first encounter explains how Michael is helping them in the battle for the mind of Cyrus. The second encounter discloses that Michael will continue to battle as we turn into a new kingdom, the kingdom of Greece, and implied throughout history he will stand by the side of the people of God. And then, why Michael? I promise to get back to this mighty vision. What Daniel experiences by seeing the heavenly being, the divine being, and falling to the ground is the strength and the might of that prince called Michael. This is an assurance to him that this prince is mighty enough to win the victory, to deliver, to redeem, and save his people in the end. So here are some messages from chapter 10. There is a battle going on behind the scenes. Those who are praying will come into contact with heavenly beings who are fighting the battle on their behalf. And there is a prince named Michael who is strong enough to beat up and win over any enemy you could imagine. Thank you for listening to this tidbit from Daniel 10. We are moving on to 11 and 12 for these low-key presentations on the book of Daniel. Welcome back.